Hello, everybody, and welcome to More Than Commas. I am your host, Paul Adams, joined by my other host, Corey Shepard. And
Hello.
We have a topic for you today. Based upon Corey's last episode, we have somebody who has a problem with what Corey went over. And it's a very famous financial person. We're going to get into it in a moment. But be sure to like, subscribe, share this episode with somebody that you care about, because today we are going deep. Last week, you guys heard Corey's article that was on the Ernst Young white paper, and this idea that having whole life insurance and or annuities, Corey, did that white paper say exclusively instead of all other assets?
No.
It was
Did
a
not.
part of a plan.
And by the way, it's just, we're coming in hot, but I want to say it's good to be here with you live.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've been on the same time.
A lot of episodes separately. We'll get to that, but I just want to say, it's fun to just do this again. It's good to have a reason to, I guess. Mm-hmm. Sorry I had to be under these circumstances, but
well, the best part is, everybody, we have not even told Corey what these critiques are. He knows who it's from, but we are going to go through them live with Corey. And this is, while I kept it back from him, he thought we were going to record another episode this morning, but I've kind of been holding on to this the last week. And this morning I spent 45 minutes going through all these assumptions. So while I'm sharing them with Corey for the first time, just be fair, everybody, Corey here, he knows that I've been researching it. So if I come hot at a few of these, I'm not hot at Corey. I'm hot at an industry. And that's where I want to start.
And me from my place, not exactly knowing what's going to happen is not also that much of a surprise for me. I mean, if you know, life with recording with Paul, right? So let's do it.
Yeah, for those of you who have recorded with me before and know what that's like, comment below. So let's start philosophically here, because I think what we're going to most find together, both you all watching and Corey and I, is that people get deeply entrenched in their biases. And biases prevent us from seeing certain things. There's a famous philosopher by the name of Burke. And he talked about the fact that our biases get made up by the web of words that we use. And he called that our deterministic screens, which literally the words we have floating around in our head will allow us to not see things in front of us. And we're going to see that today as we review this critique. Now, this critique is done by someone who Corey knows much more about than I do. So Corey, would you tell our audience who may not know who the white coat investor is?
So the white coat investor is probably the most popular website for financial planning specifically directed at physicians. And it's a physician, a surgeon. I'm not sure that he's actually practicing anymore. He might be, but this has taken off so much that I wouldn't be surprised if running White Coat Investor is now his full-time gig. But that's not, I mean, he could be doing surgery still. That's not important. But the point is that it is large and well known. Like, most physicians have heard about White Coat Investor
or read one of his articles
to the point that I think it could create more income for him than his surgical career because of the advertising and other sales of courses that has erupted around the site, both financial planners wanting to work directly with doctors, disability insurance vendors, different resources like that advertised on his site. So he's monetized this model, which is important to keep in mind as well, because we all have biases. We create revenue from creating financial advice, which is why we create these videos and all this work and reference to scholarship to check our biases. And whereas White Coat Investors started as this, hey, I'm just a doctor showing doctors the way, it is worth mentioning that the revenue model he has creates biases as well that we have to keep in mind. So is that a good intro?
That's a great intro. So what we're going to look at here is the white coat investor's critique of the Ernst Young white paper that Corey went over in the last episode. Before we talk about the article itself, I just want to call everybody's attention to one particular comment that I think really sums up what's happened here for white coat investor. This is somebody called Factor Fan back August 21st of 21. Your bias when it comes to insurance products like life insurance and annuities makes your point of view less interesting. When you want to justify your point of view about paying off the mortgage, instead of investing in equity index funds, you point to the uncertainty of the equity premium. Let me translate that for everybody. Is that the white coat investor he's saying says you should pay off your home because you can't be positive that you're going to get the extra return, that's the premium, above and beyond the mortgage interest rate. So at least this person commenting knows fancy financial terms. So when you justify your point of view to avoid well-designed life insurance and fixed annuity products as safe long-term accumulation vehicles that can be competitive with short to intermediate bonds, you point to the equity premium and ignore the fact that you hold a substantial portion of your portfolio in bonds. Just wish you were more open-minded to the nuance you know exists. That's the comment. And I'm
They're
going to give you
making a
an answer to
similar
that.
point to one we've observed about Dave Ramsey, which is when he was saying you could get 12% in a good growth mutual fund, which for the record, we don't agree with that assessment, and reality doesn't really agree with that assessment. I mean, to be fair, like research.
Last time we checked the full
right?
database for the United States for 40 years of it.
There was
One,
one. There was one that, but you had to have
yeah,
started. Like it's already too late to get
out of
that. It's kind of the point.
70,000 mutual funds over that period of time that lived and over half died.
So if that's true, then his advice about, well, if you have a 3% mortgage, you should just pay that off as fast as possible without referencing the other fact, at least talking about the pros and cons of how those two could go together and that you would be making more money by not paying it off as fast as possible, putting some money into a mutual fund, letting that grow, using that to pay it off. So same here, where there's two different comparisons of the equity markets that kind of, they clash with each other, or they're not really acknowledging the how they could live together. That's a really insightful comment.
Exactly. And then here's the answer from the white coat investor. And yet, here you are, still not only reading my point of view, but taking time to comment on it. That kind of speaks to Corey's monetization piece. The criticism is probably fair. Talk to NML, so talk to a mutual life insurance company. So go talk directly. If you don't like what he has, then go take this other path that by white coat investors' own assessments and other articles is the worst possible path. So if you don't like what I'm saying, don't change it slightly, run in the complete opposite direction. Talk to NML if you don't like my attitude toward life insurance as an investment. If they'd quit selling whole life inappropriately to doctors, just like they did to me as a medical student, I might not be so fired up about it. But you've got to admit, this brochure masquerading as a study is terrible. No? Now we're going to come back to it masquerading as a study, but you know what I think this is this is sarcasm.
It's people that know that you're being sarcastic because it's the last refuge of someone who has no answer.
Now, I do want to give him, to his comment, he very well may have been sold life insurance inappropriately as a resident. It does happen, happens not infrequently, where if someone, if all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. There are situations where advisors would over allocate people, not take into account short-term cash flow needs, diversifying against different goals that they have. Like that very well, that probably did happen to him. So I feel for him for that. So the fact that he has a bad taste in his mouth, like we've seen that before for other people. So we get where he's coming from.
And in all fairness, what I've also seen, in fact, we're working with some physicians right now, husband, wife, and they started with whole life policies, good ones. And all that happened is somebody like the white coat investor came in and convinced them they shouldn't have it. Now, maybe they got too much too young, But we've also seen those physicians, and when they take the right approach with their life insurance, even that tool that was suboptimal in the way they'd used it the previous 5 years becomes one of their most effective financial tools afterward. Would that also be fair?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see this? Like this, we're getting sparks going. Corey and I, this is a fight. No, just kidding.
This episode is brought to you by Sound Financial Group. At Sound Financial, we specialize in helping clients build strong, long-term financial strategies for their retirement. If you're looking for personalized advice to help manage your wealth, visit us at sfgway.com to learn more about how we can help you achieve your goals.
So, dissecting the Ernst Young products. So, Corey, I am going to go through this in depth. We may have multiple episodes, but here's the reason why. We need for people to see this. If he was hurt really terribly by that and that makes him angry, then I'm going to couch this whole thing for Dr. James M. Dolly?
Dahl.
Dale?
I would say
Dahl.
Dahl or Dale.
I
don't know.
Anyway, so James, like you got some blind spots. You are a huge personality, all of that. I don't think you're ever going to come on our show. I would welcome you on, would love to have a conversation with you. And I know why you've got a blind spot around it. It's normal. We have an entire industry, much that you're even a part of right now, that rides that train of the demonization of insurance tools, specifically life insurance and annuities. They are worth some demonization, as some of the things that Corey talked about 2 episodes ago, right? That there's some things they've done, inappropriate marketing, etc. But economists across the board overwhelmingly agree, and real world mechanics play out, that these tools can be effectively used as a part of your financial strategy. Now, I'm coming reformed from the other direction. I started my career at Northwestern Mutual Life, where it was like the kingdom of the rising sun, and the sun never sets on Northwestern Mutual. And it is the way, the truth, the life, and the only way to own life insurance. That was kind of the mentality. So that's not necessarily right either, that what we should be doing is piling all of our money into that.
Right.
And it's that zealotry of people taking a strong position completely one way or another that works really well in media, that absolutely erodes people's financial picture. So we're going to work through this. Corey, I'm going to read chunks of this. I'm going to be checking with you for feedback, or you're going to be interrupting me, but we are digging in now. As you guys can see with monetization, you are going to be chock full, if you're watching the YouTube video, of ads off to the right of this. These are not our ads we're putting up in our video. These are the ads that he runs. There is a lot of them. When Corey said this doctor has done a great job of monetizing his content, boy, has he. Okay. Every few years, financial organizations, often a life insurance company, commission a quote unquote study that shows that life insurance is awesome. The motive behind these studies is usually pretty obvious. The most recent one going around is the Ernst Young company that consults for insurance companies. Okay. So they consult for insurance companies. We'll come back to that. Our global team of professionals combines industry knowledge and technical expertise to help with your most pressing issues. Whether through our tax, audit advice, or innovative advisory services, we help insurers explore M&A strategies, adopt new business models, develop new products, embrace technologies, optimize customer experience, and address shifting workforces. But my first critique on this is, car companies. Like Ernst Young consults with car companies and writes white papers about that too. Like they write white papers about all kinds of businesses. Right here, he says he's trying to point to there's a conflict of interest. Well, a conflict of interest matters if you see wrongdoing. A conflict of interest is something to be aware of, that we should all be aware of when discussing a strategy. And in this case, he has a conflict of interest because, for instance, is he in his article going to recommend something that's not one of his advertisers? That's a conflict of interest.
Well, and let's talk about it, because like I think what he's comparing to, it's one thing if it's, I don't know, the nonprofit organization funded wholly by donations from the cereal industry, saying that that, Cheerios are part of a heart healthy diet. Like, you might be like, okay, you're only consulting with this one company. But Ernst Young consults with so many different companies. If they just started piling out like shill white papers, it would fall apart. Like, I think that
It would
would,
hurt them.
right? But nonetheless, let's let his observation, like, I think it's a less powerful critique, and his more powerful ones might be coming later. But let's remember it in the back of our heads, and we'll call it out if we see anything that might be like, oh, this isn't a true fact, or this isn't a useful comparison. But I think it's weak.
And coming from me, for Dr. James, nothing like ever. I am going to get wound up in this episode about how so many people in the industry get these blind spots, and then they perpetuate those blind spots by never being willing to have a conversation. I would even have a conversation offline, over Zoom, etc. Going through some of the things we talk about this, we don't need the audience for it. I don't think you've got plenty of audience. You don't need it. But there's some meaningful things here and some very untrue things in this that I know are not coming from malice. At least I don't believe they are. I think they're coming from a blind spot that exists. And as you mentioned, evidence-based medicine later in this article, that same thing needs to exist with money, and we need to test things, et cetera, not only rely on our past assumptions, which a lot of this does. Okay. So he talks through the same 5 strategies you talked through
Right.
in the last episode, Corey. So investments only, investments plus term, whole life insurance plus investments, deferred income annuity plus investments, and 5th, deferred income annuity plus whole life investments. Seen a few of these, and he takes another quote of the conclusion. Our analysis shows that integrating insurance products into a financial plan provides value to retirement investors. Insurers can use these products to strengthen their relationship with investors and seize upon possibilities in the marketplace that have proved challenging. Yea, the retirement savings marketplace is challenging to insurance companies because they're trying to convince people to buy their policies or retirement accounts, and they simply do not work as well as traditional investments inside tax-protected accounts. So that's his first assertions. Now, we can't test that one. We just don't have enough information about how he came to that conclusion, so we'll skip it. Do you believe the study's conclusion? Call me cynical, but I've run the numbers enough time myself that I'm a little skeptical of their conclusions. Maybe it's because the study itself basically looks like a brochure for the whole life insurance policy. I mean, who puts a picture of a family collecting pumpkins into a real study?
I mean, the pictures that they pick for things like this, it is funny. But I actually like that white papers are becoming less just stark, like a starched dress shirt,
Yeah.
like it's just more fun to read. So, but that's
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
even really anything either. That's not
And
really
that's-
anything either.
And what you're seeing here is that he's got what I like to refer to as rabbit ears, which is where he's got a problem with something. He just hasn't found the something yet. And as soon as the something shows up, this is what he's already ready for. So, like, for instance, that's the only way you find a critique that it's family gathering pumpkins as a picture as a problem for the white paper is if you start off with, there's a problem with white paper because of those prior biases. Okay. So, while most people only read
18 problems. What?
I told you, Corey, this is not going to be a single episode situation. Like, we are digging in. Our clients are going to ride this pony with us. It ain't going to be easy, but we are going to have a blast. Okay. While most people only read the conclusions of any study, I agree with him there. Anyone who has spent any time at all studying evidence-based medicine knows the real information is in the process and assumption sections of a paper. Let's take a look at these and see what we find. Luckily, it doesn't take that long to read the entire 18-page study since it has so many glossy photos, fancy charts, and case studies any prospective buyer could relate to in it. Yeah, or it would help them understand it. It helps if you start at the end and just look at the fine print, which is really the only part of this sort of thing worth reading. Let's list out all the problems with the study. Okay, I do agree with him. The assumptions are dead on. And we've done the same where we've tore into studies on tax loss harvesting and found that. But let's see what he says. Let's start with 18 problems.
Could I pause for a second? If you just scroll back up to the ads, I just have to talk about that. So he has an online course called Fire Your Financial Advisor. And I've talked about this before. I think he first started with a book.
Forgot about it.
He is not a licensed financial advisor as far as I can tell. Like I haven't seen any of that evidence. So unless he's licensed with the state that he's in or with the SEC as an investment advisor, he's making money on replacing what a financial advisor does without being licensed. Like he's getting into a dangerous territory of giving unlicensed advice. Just like we don't practice law or give specific tax advice, we'll do some planning, but we're not telling folks, hey, pay us something and fire your accountant. Like that's worth noting as far as a bias. I
think you're right.
bugs me. Yeah.
Is that a conflict of interest? So if you ask him, are advisors worth it? He can't tell you. He can tell you what he thinks, but he could not be somebody you could trust with the answer if it was just his assessment. You would have to look at the data alongside him, and that's what we're doing today.
Right.
Hey, I'm so glad you could join us for this episode of More Than Commas. Next week, join us where we go through our first 7 points of 18 points. We are going through this piece by piece, giving you a look at how to look at financial opinions and specifically White Coat Investor in their critique of the Ernst Young white paper. Join us next week.